Our topic today is, I believe it's a very controversial topic and of an interest of everyone in Egypt specifically. It's about the automotive industry in Egypt. We have taken we will speak about the project in general, the industry in general, and then we'll go with some analysis, and then as the doctor requested, speak about some of the products. Definitely my colleagues Minna will be following about more details as we go into the topic. As you know, that the automotive industry is one of the very critical and important industries in Egypt. We know that the industry, with the definition of industry, might not be that meaningful in Egypt specifically, given that most of our cars in the market are either imported or assembled in Egypt, but we don't have the industry with the meaning of industry. I believe now an average of 0.17% or 17% of any car assembled in Egypt is industrialized in Egypt, but even those are assembled in Egypt, not all of them are industrialized, that's why it is one of the main topics that the government is taking care of recently and trying to do a lot of reforms in that fight. We'll speak about it going forward as well. Egyptian car market is, however, it is one of the largest in Africa. Still, if we compare that to the number of people in Egypt, it is very small, and actually if not the smallest in the region. We average around 25 cars per 1,000 inhabitants in Egypt, which is very small if we compare it, for example, to some of the 45, while in Tunisia, for example, 225, in Turkey 144, and in Jordan in 165, which means each 1,000 Egyptian, they have only 25 cars, which means that most of Egyptians are depending mainly on the public transport, either private or public, to make sure that they are going or to commute within the region. As we mentioned, most of cars in Egypt are imported. Locally produced car or assembled car are around 50%. This is according to 2021, the latest statistics that we have, which means that we import around the other 50%. It was 100K in 2020, but it reached around 125K in 2021. By the way, 2021 had a spike with an average of 29% versus 2020. Which the spike mainly was coming from the imported car and some of the assembled car, but definitely in 2022 there was a dip. I will tell you more about it in the coming slide. We have around 500 companies working in the local industries, but in Egypt, when we speak about industry, because there is a condition to assemble a car in Egypt that you have to have some local components, but these components are very simple, like batteries, seats, pipes, or cooling systems that are very, very simple. No complex industries in what we do. One of the things that we need to mention as well is our capacity. I believe same as the doctors mentioned in the iron, for example, when we speak about iron and cement, that we have the capacity to produce more cars, however we don't, given that the demand that we have is very low. Some would think that the demand is very high on cars, but this is not the demand on the market itself. It might be on some brands, but for the demand in cars is not as high as to produce with the full capacity for the plants. Given that some of the plants are being calculated in the capacity, like in NAS, they don't produce. So that's why when we speak about the capacity, we speak about the whole plants that we have for cars. Speaking about the still or the other macroeconomic environment that we have in the political file is very critical. The government, President even Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, are giving this file a very high importance. They're making something that called the AIDP, which is the Automotive Industry Development Program. This has been launched in last June. It's about mainly having Egypt to be a hub for exporting cars to Africa. This is one. The other thing is adopting some partnerships like with Emirates and with China to produce the electric car and double-fueled cars, double-fueled car with Emirates and the electrical car with China. Some challenges in that file specifically because the Chinese partner has been withdrawn from the agreement lately, yet it is one of the very critical projects that we have. some of the things that have happened to the government to enrich the trade and this industry. However, as you all know, that the customs decrease or removal of the customs for the European cars below 160 or 1600 cc's. However, that have been offset and balanced by the higher taxes on that, so you cannot feel any differences in the industry. I believe when we speak about the economical factors, as you know, lately we have been through a lot of bumps in the economy in the world, not only in Egypt, followed by the devaluation of the currency, of the Egyptian pound, the lack of having the hard currency because it's not easy to do so. And if you know that Egypt has actually imported cars with worth of $3.5 billion into 2021, which is an average of 9.3% of the overall imported products from all over the world, which is a very high portion. That's why I believe all of us, we can sense it now, that the cars are having a lot of restrictions to provide hard currencies because it is a luxurious product, yet it contributes with around 10%, average of 10%. And if you know that, for example, all the other consumed or large cycle consumed products like Frigidaires, like all other home appliances, around $200 million only. So cars is around more than 20 times or 30 times than these. You know that the car industry is one of the large. Definitely, as a socially, to have a car is an optional and luxurious, given that already we speak that only 45 or 44 Egyptians from each 1,000 are having cars, which means that it's a luxurious thing. It is not one of the basics that we have. Still, the brand of the car is being determined of the determination of your class, which is contribute socially in what cars, the model, and everything. Technology, in the technology part has been, technology cars is all the time associated with technology, which means that the more time that you go, new in the technologies are being pumped in the cars. Definitely the new revolution now, which is a combination of the technological factors and the environmental factors, the electrical cars. As I mentioned, Egypt is trying to be involved, yet it is the new trend right now, socially and environmentally and technologically as well, of having cars. By the way, Egypt has made some agreements about having, like we call it, stations for charging the electrical cars in Egypt, to make sure that to facilitate having these cars within the consumers. They believe that we might make our first Egyptian electrical car by 2023. I believe this is still not being done yet. Legally, we have some of recently, or all the time, we have some of the legislations and laws regarding the licensing, regarding the transfer of ownership, regarding the traffic. Still, these legal action that have been taken or laws that have been imposed by the government is not pushing forward a lot of use of cars, because it is all about restricting the use of cars or having more penalties for those who drive cars. Yet, still the market is expanding, but we believe that the legislation have been done are not that supporting. I believe we all know the latest initiation by the government about replacing the old cars. You can do that with the replacing your old car with the new car. It is more than 20%. Yet, I have to conclude with this, that definitely one of the reasons of the expansion is not about the income increase of the Egyptian market, but the introduction of the ride-hailing application cars like Didi, like Uber, and as well Karim. I believe Minna will take us through the market segmentation.
Hello everyone. Our main discussion is about the passenger cars, but before talking about the passenger cars, we need to take a look upon the whole market of cars in Egypt. Because cars, it doesn't mean passenger cars only. The car business or the automotive business in anywhere has three main segments. Passenger cars is one of them. So The main three segments for any market for regarding the cars is consisting of passenger cars, buses, and trucks. Passenger cars is like our cars, the cars we're using taxis, you're using in Uber and Didi and everything, and this is our main focus, but there is other options that we need to take care of as well, because all of the automotive industries, even in Egypt, tries to have diversity in their portfolio on all cars, in order not to have a problem like the one we're getting in right now in Egypt. So we have the passenger cars, we have the buses, and the buses means that the buses that for the transportation, like the public transportation buses, and the mini buses that is held by private transportation companies or by private sectors to transfer the employees. And then we have trucks. Trucks, like everything that carries goods around Egypt. Heavy trucks and light trucks, oil trucks and everything that carry a good around Egypt. Regarding the market segment, and this is up to from the AMD, the Automotive Information Council in Egypt. This is the data. 73% of the Egyptian market is consisting of passenger cars. So we're trading, we're buying and selling passenger cars up to 73%. Then comes the buses then comes the trucks with 18%, and the least one is the buses with 9%. So this is an overall look on the consumer, not passenger cars market in Egypt. So what about passenger cars? This is a segmentation of the types of the cars. Passenger cars, we have two types of passenger cars in Egypt. There is lots of types of segmentation. I choose only one type for each one in order to make it easier, but it may be different based on what we're seeing. Right? We're seeing the size, we're seeing the type, we're seeing how it's manufactured, so it may be different. But this is the main, and this is the main used by the analysis and the information sectors in Egypt to describe the market. So for passenger cars, we're talking about if it's manufactured here in Egypt, means CKD, complete knockdown, like it's assembled. We get the parts and we assemble it here in Egypt, and this is what Hadi was talking about regarding the local components. And the CPU, which means that the cars that imported one piece and we are buying it, and we know this is the imported cars, okay? The buses, we have two types of buses, the mini buses, the ones that companies and everyone are buying for transportation, and the buses for public transportation and tourism. This is the large buses. And for the trucks, the light trucks, the pickups, the small trucks that goes inside the governance or something, and the heavy trucks that goes internationally or between the governments. Okay. Now we're talking about the specific company we did the study upon. A quick introduction about the profile. It's GB Auto. GB Auto was established in the 40s by two brothers, Sadi and Kamel Ghabbour. They started trading cars, then tires, then they diversified their portfolio to household items and car parts and lots of stuff. And then the company got separated into two companies. One of them became GB Auto. GB Auto was established in the 90s. It was a family business, of course, and they are the first one to introduce the idea of using a car that's not American or German in Egypt. So they introduced the Korean car. And in the beginning, when they introduced the Korean car, Egyptian market was like, I'm not gonna buy a Korean car. This is not gonna happen. This is not a quality I need. With time and with changes in economic factors, the Korean car Hyundai started to be the market leader in Egypt. In 2002, they started to assemble the cars here in Egypt. Started with a car called Excel. I don't know if any one of us remember this car.
Yes, Hyundai. Hyundai car, yes.
Pardon? Hyundai. They started with Hyundai, assembling Hyundai. They are still assembling Hyundai. They started with Excel. Then went to the old Accent, then the famous Verna, and then and then comes the Elantra HD, and then the Accent RB. But they didn't stop in just manufacturing the Korean cars. In 2010, they introduced the Chinese car to Egypt. It was there before, but it was not a success. Then they started the Chinese car, introducing the Chinese car with jelly, and they started manufacturing jelly in Egypt, so it came with a very competitive price. Then they started introducing more cars, Chinese car, either manufactured in Egypt or outside from China directly. Right now, they have 3 Chinese brands, 1 Korean and 1 Japanese in passenger cars, but it's not the main portfolio. The main portfolio for the company is passenger cars, commercial vehicles, construction equipment, 2 and 3 wheelers, tuk-tuk, and motorcycles, tires and spare parts. So the portfolio is diversified, but for passenger cars they have 5 brands, 3 Chinese, 1 Korean and 1 Japanese. Also, they have a financing service. They have a sector called GB Capital. It has financing services for small projects, leasing, and car financing services. And recently, they entered the social responsibility market with Ghabbour schools. It's high-tech schools for the people who graduates from prep schools and wants to go to technical secondary schools. And they provide them with jobs for the top ranking once they are graduated, a 5 years school. This is the brands, the most important brands right now with GB Auto, of course Hyundai, we have Chery, Mazda, Geely is not with Ghabbour anymore. And recently we have Shangan and Haval. For the trucks and buses, they have Mitsubishi and Volvo. And for the tires, we have Yokohama, Lhasa, and Goodyear, and of course GB Capital is a sister company for financing.
Yes, sir.
Right, for the market share, let's talk right now about the passenger cars market share and who's contributing in the market share and with which percentage. For the market share, and the market is oligopolistic market here in Egypt because it's only few players who controls the situation and very hard to enter the market, specifically with the very high cost to enter the market. The initiation of the investment is very high. So who we have here in Egypt as a market leaders? We have GB Auto with 27% share. This is due to the fact that it has 5 brands of passenger cars. Then we have Mansour with 4 brands of passenger cars. Qasrawi, only 2 brands. One of them is Nissan. This is why we have a very high market share. Modern Motors, they have Suzuki, so Suzuki has a good market share as well. And Toyota and Kia with 10 and 9% of the share. So this is the main market share. Of course, the latest one will have the small players as well because it's only like 0.0, 0.8 and so. So this is a kind of market. Why this is Ghabbour and Mansour are having almost 50% of the market? Because they have a number of brands, not only 1 or 2. So they are seeking the customer, whatever the segment the customer needs to, the customer belongs to. So it's easier for them to attract the customer to get a higher market share. And we will see this on the brands. I'm having another one for the brands. We see we don't have brands like the top brands in the market, but because of several brands together, the company itself has a top or a high market leadership. So what's going on or what's coming for the market and what may change this shape? 2 things: the electric cars, like Hedy said. Introduction of the electric cars will be a new entry to the market, so you could have a niche market to access to. And the multi-brand repair shop. And multi-brand repair shop is a new idea, means that I don't want to go to the service center, to the authorized service center because the prices are too high or my car is out of warranty, and yet I don't want to go to a normal local mechanic. So we have right now Feta Fix, Mekaniki, and so. This is like a good service centers helping anyone and servicing any type of car with a good, yet a little bit higher prices, but not very high like the dealership itself. These are the new entries that might change the market segmentation. Regarding the brands itself, we will see that neither of Ghabbour brands are the top in the market. Actually, the top in the market is Nissan. then Suzuki, and this is why the dealerships are having a share in the market. Then comes Chery, Ghabbour brand, MG, Mansour brand, comes then Toyota, then comes Hyundai, Kia, Fiat, and so on. This is per brand. As we see that Chery is only the third, but as we said, because of the number of brands, the share got higher. We'll talk right now about specifically, let's go inside a little bit more about the passenger cars inside Ghabbour Auto and how the supply and demand are affected regarding two types of cars we did the study on and Minna.
Hi everyone. We are going to talk now about the demand and the supply factor that affect the car purchase per person. We believe that the automobile prices or the car prices is mainly affected by the prices. Whenever the prices round up, we are thinking too much about purchase our car or not, as well as the fuel prices. Fuel prices is a complement. The fuel is a complement product. Whenever the petroleum prices increase, it affects our purchase power parity to buy the car, and after that to pay for each month or each 2 weeks, whatever you put the fuel, according to your transportations. Individual income, whenever you have income or increase in your disposable income, you are thinking too much about how can I change my car to shift to another brand or buy a brand, as well as the public transportation. When the public transportation is very accessible and very easy to go or clean enough to use, you can think that I might not have a car and use the public transportation, and vice versa. If the transportation is very low or very bad to use, you're thinking so much to have a car, as well as the automobile financing options. In Egypt, we have many corporate or such as banking or contact card or others that can give you facility to buy your car. Whenever this is available, you can think to have a car or to pay an installment according to your disposable income. Also, social and economic factor affects our decision to buy a car, or the demand factor as well. Social, that as Heidi said before, social factor that we have here in Egypt rents, or the number of people, or the way that you decided to let other people see you, and economic factors that like the increase in per capita income or the individual income as well. Inflation rate, whenever the inflation rate increases, the interest rate increase, and accordingly the financing options is very hard to get, which is finally affect our demand factor. For the supply factor, we know that, as Minna already mentioned, that entry cost is very high due to the complexity of the industry. So the entry cost is one of the most important factor to that affect the supply factors. Fixed operating income, we have also the fixed income, the number of worker, the building, the electricity and utility as well. The variable costs are affected by the number of products or the number of cars that you are going to produce. So whenever the raw material or the spare parts you purchase from abroad increase, this affects our supply, and we are going to increase the prices as well to the individual demand. Technology, as Hadi already said, that when technology is advanced or they enhance in the technology, it affects our supply, make more easier for us to increase our supply or reduce our costs, so people can get more car or the car they need. Taxes, it is the government's input in our supply. When the government decides to remove taxes on the European cars, all the people are going to purchase it as it's lower the cost. And when the government decides to increase the taxes to collect more money. Accordingly, people will not have excess. So we decided to draw two graphs. We first choose Hyundai Tucson, but in car industry, especially in Automotive, the supply curve is equal to the demand curve, as the consumer are going to reserve the car before we secure the product before 6 months. So they set a number of cars, and after that they make their supply according. So the supply and the demand curve are the same. So we can see here when the price are 435, we have number of cars supplied are in US. And then we change whenever we can go upward, we can see the supply curve changes as well. Whenever we are going so high in the price, our supply would be less for the number of cars. Accordingly, our demand is the same. So accordingly, when the price 455, demand also decrease. So we choose to get a substitute. Market of the cars is have very substitutes options. So we go to Tigo 8. Tigo 8 relatively almost. We are going to here in the 400. We have part of the supply curve. Move here in elastic, number of cars, and then when we get up, we have a decrease in supply curve as well. We decide to make a price elasticity for both, and then decide that we cannot proceed with the price elasticity. We have to go to cross elasticity. Here is our calculation. You can find here 0.01, no, sorry, you can find here 16.55 and 0 علشان the prices is not changes at this part, and then 0.75. Here is elastic, very elastic. The car has a substitute, so it is very elastic here. In elastic because there is no change in prices here, and then when we go for the Tigo, the prices here went so up. Here the price. It was 409 and then 494. But when we have an increase in prices, the car for the Tigo become inelastic. Because here they are going to target a niche market, a specific segment, but they are going to be inelastic. As well as the Hyundai, we can also see that all the prices here is elastic, here elastic, and a 0 علشان there is no change in prices, and then elastic and elastic. Accordingly, we have to go for cross elasticity. Sorry for the bad calculations, but we take the quantity of Hyundai and then the prices of Tigo. They are perfectly substitutes. We have here elastic, here علشان the prices of the Tigo is not changes, and then here is elastic. Accordingly, we can conclude that whenever the prices of Tigo increase, we can shift to Hyundai and vice versa because they are perfectly substitute, and the car industry, especially in a very low, it's not a very low, and this range of prices is very elastic. So whenever the price of one change, customer can easily change to another one. Thank you.